Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fancy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about 5 books for you to check out if you're tired of generic epic fantasy. These books are fancy novels that have just enough of a splash of genre to them to make them digestible to most readers, while being very far off the beaten track for the most part. They'll more than likely they're going to be unlike anything you typically read or would or have even experienced before if you read primarily generic fantasy books. So anyway, without further ado, in no particular order, just however I came up with a list. At number 1, I have Katherine Arden's The Warm Hands of Ghosts, and this is a historical fantasy novel set during World War One, and it follows the story of a nurse who learns that her brother has been killed in action on the front, and she doesn't quite believe that he's dead, and that sentiment gets reinforced when she gets some evidence. So she leaves once again to go back on the front because she was there previously and was sent back home. She returns to the front to try and find her missing brother, and along the way she becomes embroiled in the story of some other women who make their way to the front for different reasons, all stemming from family, and what essentially unfolds after that is a mystery and with a romantic subplot as she tries to find out what happened to her brother, if he's even still alive, and all of that. So this is a very complex book. Katherine Arden said that she spent years putting it together, and you can see how that was handled, in just the intricacy of the way that everything is laid out and portrayed. She does just such a brilliant job of tackling so much of the human and social context of World War One. Like, we get a look at what it meant for the people at home whilst the war was going on, the sacrifices they were forced to make, and willingly or otherwise. We get a look at the human toll it took on families and friends and relationships, as, like I said, we follow a cast of women of different women who all make their way to the front for different reasons, all related to family. They may be looking for someone, they may be fleeing someone, and I'll leave that for you to read and find out, but they all have their reasons for why they're at the front. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of some of the themes and the morality that she dives into. This is just a marvelously executed book. There's no other way for me to describe it. Like, Katherine Arden is a very gifted writer. If you've read her Winter Night trilogy, you know exactly what I'm talking about the way that she can put prose to page, and that's on full display in this book. In addition to that, this book, like I said, there is a fantastical twist to it, and we do see that in the secondary POV, whatever you want to call it. And personally, I don't recognize the antagonist, but I am fairly certain it is a character from some form of Eastern European mythology. If you know what it is, feel free to shout it out. Either Eastern European or Russian. It's going to be one of those. But what unfolds as this story unfolds, it's just this really complicated tale. There's no other way to put it. All surrounding the toll that the war took in so many different ways. It's just a very powerful book, a very engaging book. Like, this is definitely fantasy more on the literary side. So if you like I said, if you're looking for something that has elements of genre but is anything but, definitely want to check out. My number 2 pick for a book to check out if you're tired of genre fantasy is John Crowley's Ka. And this is a very oddball book. We get essentially a literary fiction masterpiece here from John Crowley, where we get the life story of Dar Oakley, an immortal crow who has been around long enough to witness the rise of humanity from almost cave-dwelling Neanderthal days straight up through the ages. And as a result of that immortality and that increased intelligence, and witnessing that evolution of man, he's come to the life he's led has led to him having some very interesting thoughts on just humanity and what it means to be a person, and relationships, and that sort of stuff. And over the course of a conversation between him and a human who he chats with over the course of this book, like we unfold his life story, or his on life story, however you want to phrase it. And this is just a fascinating book. Like, at the end of the day, no matter how humanized Dar Oakley is, he is still very much a crow, and that alienness seeps into some of his insight, because he presents things that we ought to know, we ought to recognize, like we ought to accept as this should just be basic morality, this basic rights of everyone. But as an animal, like it's just a given fact of life for him. For humans, that's not always the case. Like, we will eagerly step over one another and deny each other just for the betterment of ourselves and that kind of thing. So these are just some of the ways that this book has some fun, delving into morality and these kind of things. It's just an utterly engaging, utterly fascinating read. It's very short, and I think it won the World Fantasy Award at some point or the other, which is how it came onto my radar in the first place. Just an utterly fascinating book, and one I highly, highly recommend you check out. That's number 2. Number 3, I have a book. I'm not sure that this is not so much a retelling so much as a story inspired by Grendel, and that is Maria Devana Headley's The Mere Wife. And this is just a brutal, absolutely visceral story. Like I said, inspired by Grendel, where we follow the relationship between these two children. One who seems to live in the wild, up in the mountains, and a very privileged young, soon-to-be leader of society, whatever. And as the story unfolds, and we learn more about the differences between these two children and their family life, and just what surrounds them, like, this book just unpacks so much. It unpacks the way that social inequality dehumanizes people. It unpacks the way that privilege and wealth allows people to live just a completely different life from those who don't have even basic necessities, even as the skin that they portray to the world can be just can be just a sham to cover so many deep, troubling, traumatic issues. Like, this is a complicated book, a complex story. There's no single character in here who is, aside from the children maybe, who are like good people, you can call it. And the way that certain people are portrayed, it really makes you question who the real monster is, even though everyone in here is a human. Like, it's just a breath. It's I can't describe it enough. It's just an utterly fascinating, incredibly rich story. It's very short, and it's just worth the read. It's really worth the read. Like, if you check out no other book on this list, this is the one to check out. But yeah, to keep it going, at number 4 I have Alex Jennings' The Ballad of Perilous Graves, and this book first made my radar last year when it came up as a nominee for the World Fantasy Award. And this follows the story of a young boy who grows up in NOLA, which is a fantastical alternate version of New Orleans, when the music stops, and as a result of the music stopping, the magic begins to change in the world that he inhabits, and he ends up going on a quest as a result of that to kind of to basically solve the mystery of what's going on here. And this is a very strange, fascinating book. it's probably much more generic than anything on the list. At the same time, it's very different from anything else on this list. Like there's a bunch, the exuberant is the best word to put it. Exuberant creativity. Like there's living graffiti. This book really goes out there in the way that it depicts a fantastical New Orleans. And as we go on this quest, like it really challenges so much. I don't want to get into that actually, because it's one of the big concepts behind the book, and I think that's one that's best left enjoyed as that book unfolds. But this is just a really rich, a really creative book, told by Alex Jennings, and I'm very excited to see what else he has for us in the future. If this is the first thing he's written, it seems like it's his debut novel at least. But yeah, so the Ballad of Perilous Graves. The fifth book is actually my favorite book of 2024, with almost no competition, and that's Jared Petchek's The West Passage. This is a book that's essentially inspired by Gormenghast. It has the same concept of this all-encompassing castle that's essentially descended into decrepitude. It's like the society within this castle has degenerated into something far less than human. Not that they were very human to begin with, as we slowly see, but what happened with this particular book is that there is a threat that emerges every once in a while, every once in a while. Let's put it at that. And as a result of the denigration of this society, of this castle, as people have died and essentially the population has diminished drastically. They as this threat begins to reappear, the castle may not be able to survive it. So, and what ends up happening is the people who detect this threat, they go on a journey that I could really only describe as a fever dream, around this castle, and through that we get to see just an absolutely incredible feat of imagination on display. Like this, as much as this book is inspired by Gormenghast, the aesthetic of it is completely different. Like the author who wrote it is also an artist, so the book is loaded with interior artwork of a very distinct style, and the cover art is an absolutely perfect depiction of a major element of the story. So if that captures your attention, it should. Is the only way I'll put it. It is, to put it mildly. This is just a brilliant book. Like I was just mind blown. I was just in awe of what goes on in this, of what I was reading as I was reading this book. It's one of the most fascinating, most compelling things I've read in a very long time. It's very different from anything I've read in fantasy to date, as much as it is very much inspired by Gormenghast, and it has that seed at its core, but it very much becomes its own thing. So yeah, that's 5 books to put on your radar if you're tired of straight up genre fantasy. Absolutely worth checking out. And if you've read any of these, feel free to drop a comment. I'm very happy to talk to anyone who's read these books, because sometimes it seems like I'm the only one who's read them. But yeah, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.